I am the chair and founder of the Brownie Democrats of California, one of 9 statewide Democratic organizations chartered by the California Democratic Party. We are part of the party.
So what brings you out here to the convention today?
Well, every year since 2013, we have had a booth here at the exhibit hall in the state convention because we're working within the Democratic Party to originally see to it that marijuana is legalized. We were one of the groups that got the California Democratic Party in 2014 to put a plank in their platform endorsing for the first time that marijuana should be legalized. And then in 2016, we one of the groups that got them to be a proponent of Proposition 64 and to encourage all Democrats to vote yes on Proposition 64. We continue to work with the Democratic Party to see that Proposition 64 is fully and robustly implemented so people in California will have safe, reliable, local, and affordable access to cannabis.
So now that it's recreationally legal here in California, has your fight moved on to the federal level?
Well, we're still fighting on the California level because 2/3 of the cities and counties have banned all commercial distribution of cannabis. So people who live in those cities and counties will have to drive hundreds of miles to a city or an area where it has been legalized and they can buy it, or what's far more likely is they will continue to buy on the criminal market in their own particular area. So by them refusing to allow the commercial distribution, which is now allowed under California law, they are aiding and abetting the black market of cannabis and torpedoing the very thing that Proposition 64 was meant to do, was to put an end to the black market.
So I guess personally, I've seen now that it's taxed when you get it at the what would you call them, clinics?
Dispensaries.
That it's a little bit more expensive. Could that be a driving factor in like the illegal market?
Well, the taxes are high, but that's not the problem. The problem is the cost of production. Right now, cannabis on the wholesale market in California sells for $1,000 a pound. Now, could you name me any agricultural commodity that in its raw form is selling for $1,000 a pound? Of course not. That's absurd. But the way it's structured production, it makes the production costs high. We need to let them be able to lower the production costs by allowing regular farmers to grow large quantities. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to compare it to hothouse tomatoes. Now, the best marijuana is grown in greenhouses, just like hothouse tomatoes. And when you go to a grocery store, the hothouse tomatoes are being sold for around $3 a pound. And that includes the farmer's money, the distributor's money, and the retail markup. Well, cannabis isn't any more difficult to grow than tomatoes. But just for the sake of argument, let's say cannabis is 10 times more expensive and more difficult to grow than tomatoes. So what does that make it? $30 a pound. So even if we put in a 100% tax, that would make marijuana $60 a pound, which is about, what, $9 an ounce, and no one is going to sit there and object to paying $9 an ounce for marijuana. So this stuff where they're complaining about the taxes, yes, the taxes are high, but it only seems that way because the production costs are so high. But if we can get cannabis, our regular farmers to grow hundreds of acres, thousands of acres, allow them to do it, just like they do any other agriculture, the price would plummet so much that the taxes would be of no consequence.
Well, because I think the real initiative started when people were banding together as a collective and they were having these dispensaries as a collective. What you're saying, does that put out a lot of the home growers?
No, not at all. Well, now, if commercial, don't confuse people who grow marijuana at home for themselves with commercial growers. Proposition 64 allows everybody who's 21 and over to grow 6 plants indoors. They can't grow it outdoors if the local community bans outdoor growing, but everybody is allowed to grow 6 plants or over, 6 plants if they're 21 or over. Here's the rub. 6 plants grown indoors isn't going to produce much marijuana. So how can they overcome that? Well, we still have Proposition 215 in force, so you can go get a doctor's recommendation. If you have a doctor's recommendation, you are allowed to grow as much marijuana as is medically necessary. So if you need to grow 15 plants to produce the amount of marijuana that you need to treat that ailment, you can grow 15 plants. So that's homegrown for people growing themselves. Now, if you're talking people growing at home to sell on the commercial market, no, they can't do that. Just like they can't make wine at home to sell on the commercial market. They're not going to be able to grow marijuana at home and sell it on the commercial market.
Well, let's say if you're comparing the quality of commercial grade marijuana towards something you grow at home, it's hard to compete. Would you say that?
What do you mean, that homegrown is better than commercial?
Commercial's better than homegrown.
Well, it depends on how good you are at it. I know some people who grow at homegrown, they grow some dynamite stuff, let me tell you. But they know what they're doing. Right. And there's people like me who grow at home, and it's mediocre stuff, but it still gets the job done. Right. Just takes a little bit more.
I guess now, if once it's more commercially accepted, are there concerns about like GMO marijuana and like chemicals and stuff?
Well, of course there is. And you know, when you go to a grocery store and you buy a candy bar, on that candy bar it's got everything listed in it. And that candy bar has been inspected, and you know that candy bar doesn't have any contaminants or pollutants or anything in it. And when you go and you pay money at a dispensary for marijuana, you should expect the same quality. So under the law, under Prop 64, all the products that you buy at a dispensary have to be tested. Tested for pollutants, tested for contaminants, and then it's also tested for the concentration. So you'll know how much THC you have in it and how much CBD. So you actually know what you're getting. When you go to a dispensary and you buy Black Widow or Jack Herer or Purple, you don't know whether it is. You know, you look at White Widow at this dispensary and you go 2 miles down the street to another dispensary and there's White Widow and you look at it. Boy, it doesn't look anything the same. You know why? Because it's not the same. You have no idea what it is. So now when you pick it, you get tested product. It says it's got 10% THC and 2% CBD, so you know what you're getting. And if you want something that's high CBD and low THC, you can get it. You can't be sure it's high THC just because they say, oh, it's White Widow.
So how do we, I guess, further the fight? I mean, what's the next steps?
Well, the next step is to get the 2/3 of the cities and counties that have banned it to get off their butts and get in there and start allowing commercial cultivation and commercial sales. And unfortunately, you know, they're not. And the only way that's going to happen, and listen folks, the only way this is going to happen is if you get involved politically and you get those city council members and those county board of supervisors off their, get them out, vote them out, and put people in who are going to enforce the will of the California voters and allow you to have safe, reliable, local, and affordable access to cannabis where you live.
Thank you, Lanny.
My pleasure. We're part of the California Democratic Party. We're chartered by them. We're one of 9 statewide organizations. If they want to get involved with us, go to our website, www.browniemarydemocrats.org.
Thank you so much, Lanny.